feel like humans think that we have the market cornered on weird ways to have sex. Just ask the internet. Actually, don't ask the internet, especially if you're at work right now. But despite all of the fetishes and bizarre role play we work into our bedroom activities, we just cannot compete with the rest of the animal kingdom. For every creative sexual idea someone somewhere has partaken in, there are mating rituals a million times weirder out there in the wilderness. So in the name of science, let's learn about them. Here are the 10 weirdest ways animals have sex, according to us. 1 penis, 1 vagina. Pretty standard sex stuff as far as most mammals are concerned. Marsupials, however, are not bound by such limitations. Now, we already know marsupials don't follow the same reproductive rules as other mammals. Their babies are extremely immature at birth and finish their development in a pouch on the outside of the mother's body instead of on the inside. But they also do sex a little differently. Female marsupials have an extra set of reproductive organs. That's right, they got 2 uteri, 2 cervixes, and 2 lateral vaginas. And I said uteri. They also have a median vagina, so technically they have 3 vaginas. So what's the median vagina for? Well, the lateral vaginas receive the sperm, and the median vagina is the birth canal. And the males have pretty weird junk too, though they don't have 2 penises per se. Many male marsupials have forked or bifurcated penises. The reason being that this allows for the correct placement of sperm at the base of both vaginas. And different marsupials have different ways of using those extra sex organs. The Tamar wallaby, for example, has 1 baby at a time, which means only 1 uterus is in use. Other wallabies do it a bit differently. The swamp wallaby, for example, has an estrus cycle that is shorter than its gestation time, so it goes into estrus before it gives birth, then becomes pregnant with another fetus while still pregnant with the first fetus. The second fetus then enters a state called embryonic diapause, which means that it basically just stops developing until after the first one is born. Like way after. In fact, the younger fetus doesn't begin developing until 9 months later, after the older one leaves the pouch. So a female swamp wallaby can literally be pregnant for its entire adult life. All right, we're not supposed to be fans of our next creature because bedbugs are horrible little insects that feed on us while we are sleeping, instead of just being brazenly parasitic and proud of it like the noble mosquito. But I mean, after hearing about bedbug mating behavior, you might almost feel sorry for them. The mating strategy they use is called traumatic insemination, and it's called that for the reason you might expect. The male bedbug uses his genitalia to literally punch holes in the female's body cavity. And then he inseminates her through the holes. The female does in fact have a genital tract, but the male just doesn't bother with that sort of romance. The genital tract of the female bedbug is just for egg laying, nothing more. There are various theories for why bedbugs evolved this extreme and awful sounding mating strategy. In bedbugs, the last male to mate with a specific female is typically the one who gets to pass his genes along. So traumatic insemination may have evolved as a way for males to bypass female adaptations that limited how much action they could get. But some scientists also think this way of making new bedbugs has larger benefits for the species. Namely, it makes the females run away from the males and take up residence in new places, like hotels and motels and your waiting room couches and luggage. So the bedbug mating strategy doesn't just suck for the bedbugs, it also sucks for the rest of us. Thanks, nature. If traumatic insemination isn't weird enough for you, allow me to introduce you to the echidna, also known as the spiny anteater. It's a monotreme, and monotremes are mammals that lay eggs, like the platypus. And not to be outdone by the marsupials, which, as you recall, have double-headed penises, the echidna has a 4-headed penis, though only 2 of them can become erect at the same time. Structurally, the male echidna has a urethra with 4 branches, 1 for each head. It also has 2 corpora spongiosa, the column of spongy tissue that surrounds the urethra and contains all the blood vessels that produce an erection. Blood flow is directed to only 1 corpora spongiosa at a time, which keeps 2 of the branches open, allowing for both to ejaculate at the same time. This configuration seems to allow the echidna to alternate between penis pairs every time it gets busy. Speaking of getting busy, the antechinus resembles a mouse, but it is actually a marsupial. So it has to live up to the marsupial's reputation for weird reproductive strategies, and the mouse's reputation for proliferation. And it does a very fine job of both of these things. In fact, the antechinus has a 3-week mating season, and the male makes excellent use of all 21 days, blindly humping every female in sight until it dies. Literally dies. And this is not one of those like, my girlfriend ate me things, like what sometimes happens with male black widows. Scientists aren't exactly sure why this happens, but it appears that the male antechinus dies just from enthusiasm. Perhaps because he doesn't take time out from all that lovemaking for less important things like eating. According to some reports, all of that sexual activity can sometimes even make them lose all of their hair and go blind. Just like your grandma warned you. This is just the males, by the way, otherwise it might be a real problem for the species. Females typically get through mating season intact and end up living twice as long as their horny little counterparts. Next up on our list is the fanfin sea devil, which is a type of anglerfish. You may know anglerfish from that one scene in Finding Nemo, but Finding Nemo is a kid's movie, so you may not know what these guys do in the dark. And as you know, down there where they live, it is super dark, so the male anglerfish looks for a mate based on the smell of her pheromones. And because it's dark and the male is much, much smaller than the female, once he finds her, he has to latch onto her, and he does this very literally, by fusing with her, and not like in the poetic sense of that word, if there is a poetic sense of the word. No, in the literal sense of the word, he literally fuses with her until he becomes a part of her body, like a leech, but one that she can never pluck off. He gets his nutrients from her and even shares her circulatory system. In return, she gets access to a bottomless supply of sperm, which seems kind of like an unfair trade, but no one ever said nature was fair. Before we get to number 6, which I promise is very weird, we're gonna have a little cut to our sponsor. Thank you for watching this SciShow video, and thank you also for supporting us whenever you buy our stuff. Like the Anubis candle, based on the SciShow video where we explained the science behind what ancient Egyptian mummies might have smelled like, our version of this perfume is the perfect union of incense, smoke, amber, leather, and more. I don't know what the more is. It smells nice. There's tons of stuff to peruse at complexly.store. If you'd rather show your support as an OG SciShow viewer, you can opt for the classic SciShow keychain. You can shop for those items and more at complexly.store/SciShow or at the link in the description. Now, this little water bug is also called the singing penis, because it uses its penis as a violin. For real, it rubs its penis against its abdomen as a way of serenading the ladies. And in case you're thinking that this is maybe sort of similar to a dude standing outside his beloved's window with a boombox, yeah, it's kind of like that. If the boombox was turned up really, really loud and was a penis. The penis violin is about 99 decibels loud, or about as loud as a lawn tractor. So there's no turning it down for the singing penis. The neighbors are always gonna know what he's up to. As romantic as a singing penis is, the red velvet mite goes even further. The male woos the female of his dreams by planting a love garden for her. Not with flowers, though. With his ejaculate. First, he leaves silken trails for the female to follow. You know, kind of like a trail of rose petals, only there's no champagne at the end. Instead, the trails lead to these little balls of sperm that he's dropped on twigs or plant stems. Evidently, the female follows the trail, sees the sperm ball, and goes, "Oh, how lovely," and then sits on it, because why wouldn't you? Suddenly, I feel less inclined to take up gardening. Maybe because our next creature can be found there too. Land snails are hermaphroditic. Usually both sex partners are inseminated and both partners lay eggs. But that's actually not the most unusual thing about land snail sex. Land snails shoot love darts at each other, kind of like Cupid's arrows, only there's no adorable cherub on the other end. There's actually a more scientific name for these, Gibbsibellum, but scientists do usually call them love darts. The purpose of the love darts isn't super well understood, and not all snails use them in the same way. Some leave the dart behind in their partner, while others retract it. In the common garden snail, both partners shoot a dart before exchanging sperm. The leading theory is that the love dart contains an allohormone that prevents their partner's body from digesting the sperm, and that may help ensure that as many eggs as possible are fertilized. For snails, love darts are a sort of foreplay thing that both partners seem to be into, but other species are a little bit more combative. Like flatworms, These animals engage in penis fencing, and they don't even have to be fraternity brothers. In fact, they aren't even sure if they're male or female until the match is over. In this ultimate showdown of masculinity, it is the outcome of the battle that determines which one gets to be the sperm donor and which one gets to be the egg holder. Here's how this works. They try to stab each other with their penises, which we've seen before. It's traumatic insemination all over again. There's also parrying, just like in fencing, with the goal of not getting stabbed with the other guy's penis. The battle ends when one of them succeeds in stabbing the other, again with their penis. The winner provides the sperm, and the loser provides the eggs. So, like, why all the conflict? Why can't they just have like a romantic evening where they discuss their common and shared interests, and then they decide which one seems more in touch with their feminine side? Well, laying eggs comes with certain fitness costs, so this may be one reason why the worms would rather be the sperm donor than the egg layer. Though, in laboratory research, it's worth noting that both worms eventually ended up inseminated despite their sincere efforts to win the battle of the penises. And finally, we reach the weirdest creature on our list, the octopus. Male octopuses have an arm penis. Specifically, this is a modified arm called a hectocotylus, which the male uses to inseminate females. In some genera, like Argonauta, the males are a lot smaller than the females, like 1/8 of the length of the female and 1/600th of her weight. So male Argonauts have a special trick. They can detach their hectocotylus. Yes, a detachable penis, just like that song from the 90s that I remember and you probably don't. The detachable arm penis even behaves autonomously, exploring its environment, avoiding danger, and, of course, protecting its all-important penile filament. It's not completely clear why the male Argonaut has evolved this reproductive strategy, or what happens afterward. He might be able to regenerate his arm penis, or maybe he just dies after he's detached it, because when the choice is between your life or your arm penis, just die. Perhaps most surprising of all, this list is nowhere near complete. I'm stopping at 10 because you don't have all day and neither do I. But I'll leave you with this thought. Even though these reproductive strategies may seem a bit strange to us, like one penis, one vagina types, they have helped these animals survive and thrive for a long time. Which is further proof that nature doesn't have norms. What happens is whatever works, be it between marsupials or snails or flatworms. Who are we to say that it's weird?